Okay, now we're ready to go. So basically that's what we were doing, like that. Now that's a physical way of showing synergy. There's other types of synergy too. In marriage, 1 plus 1 equals 3 or 4 or 5. My oldest daughter has 6 children, so 1 plus 1 equaled 8. My other second daughter has 7 children, so 1 plus 1 equals 9. Oh, that's synergy. So one of the main things that Dr. Covey was talking about was valuing differences. Don't be afraid of them. Don't resent them, but value differences. Appreciate the resources available through interaction with others. So everybody brings something different. They bring different education. They bring different background. They bring different ideas. So when you bring people together, you have a chance of creating something where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts that you could not have achieved without everybody participating. Because it all came in, and so again, each one of them could have done something on their own, but the idea again is that when you got together, you actually created a bigger pie. So again, we were kind of talking about that last week, where you might be afraid of pursuing a win-win situation because you're going to have less of the pie, but not if the pie is bigger. If you make that pie bigger, then you might actually get more pie, even though you only get half of the pie. The pie is so big that your half is bigger than the whole was previously. So in valuing the differences, the essence of the synergy is mental, emotional, and psychological. And also, as you saw, it could be physical. But as you add these differences together, the mental differences, we all think differently, we know different things. Emotional differences, some of us are very calm, others are kind of excitable, but that can be a positive thing. They bring in energy. We have psychological differences. One reason why I want to show you the video by Dan Ariely is he shows us how bad we are at thinking. He's a behavioral economist at MIT. And so what he's going to tell us about when we watch the video, if we watch it in class or a part of it in class or when you watch it separately, is quite fascinating because we have defective minds. Psychologically, we don't function properly all the time. Maybe I'll just give you a hint already because we might not get to it. I think it was The Economist, some magazine was advertising, and they gave their potential subscribers 3 choices. Choice one was just the digital version. And I don't remember the exact number, but let's say $20. $20, I don't know, for whatever period. It doesn't really matter what the number is. 2 is print only. And let's say that one was $30. And then choice 4, or 3 rather, was print and digital, and that was also $30. Which one did most people choose? What do you think? Which of these 3 options did most people choose? 3? Yeah, they did. They did, but then Ariely himself wrote them a question. Why do you have 3 options? What idiot's going to take that one? Nobody's going to take that one. Why would he take that one? And so he just raised the question. And so they took it off. They took off number 2. No more of the option. What happened? when they took off number 2. Now which one do you choose? Most people chose 1. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but as long as there were 3 options, they chose number 3. Once there were 2 options, they chose number 1. So he goes through a number of things like that make no sense really. But the third option of print only was very important for getting people to subscribe to both, even though nobody chose it. Nobody chose number 2. But it got lots of people to choose number 3. Once they took that off, everybody chose number 1. So he goes through a number of examples of that where silly things affect how we think and how we make judgments. So like I said, we might come back to that, but that's partly what he's saying, psychological. You have a team of people looking at a problem, and some of them are thinking badly, and we do it all the time. And he goes through a lot of examples where we just don't think straight. We make silly, stupid decisions. All we had to do was put back the other one. And most people will then take 3. Nobody will take 2 still, but now instead of 1, they'll take 3. Does that make any sense? Not very much. But they've shown that sort of response numerous times. Again, psychological. In image 1 on the left, how many people see a duck there? How many see the duck in image 1? How many see a rabbit? How many see a rabbit? How many see both of them? Okay, again, not everybody was seeing both of them. Some people are seeing the rabbit, some people are seeing the duck. So even psychologically, if we get a group of people together, we can function better. The second picture is kind of like one we've seen before. How many see the old woman? Nobody sees the old woman? We've seen this before, pretty much. How many see the young woman? How many see both? This is almost identical to one we saw earlier, looked at earlier in the semester, just a little bit of bonnet instead of some other things. But yeah, there's both a young woman and an old woman there. So we even psychologically contribute to one another. Some people just simply cannot see one perspective, and so we need other people to help us see all the perspectives, all the options that we can choose between. So again, it works if we simply give people that psychological ear we were talking about, a psychological ear. We listen to them. If we listen to them, that will first off remove the competition, because now we're, in a sense, it's giving in to them in a way. They may feel that way. We're saying, let me understand what you're talking about. You explain it to me. And so how can they argue with that? You're asking to understand them, so how can they argue? They can't argue anymore, because you're not saying, listen to me. You're saying, let me listen to you and understand you better. Nobody can argue with that, or at least nobody. It'd be hard to, like it that way. There may be people who could, but it's very difficult to argue with somebody when they say, let me listen to you and understand what your perspective is. It's very hard to argue with that. And so if we can create this environment of synergy, it's not just like one incident. If we can do this in a company or in a family, whatever organization we're in, if we can create that environment of synergy, this is a real this can be a winning situation time after time after time. I think I am going to jump ahead and just let you listen to a little bit of Dan Ariely, since I kind of introduced him already with this example. He has some other, some visual examples that at least we'll look through that and you'll get a feeling for him, but I want you to watch. It's a little bit longer. I think it's like 18 minutes or so. I'm going to let you watch that on your own, most of it. I'm going to watch maybe 5 minutes, just get you hungry for it so that you'll watch it, because I think it'll benefit you. So I'm going to stop my recording again and we'll watch a little bit of Dan Ariely, the MIT professor. I'm going to let you watch the rest of those videos on your own. But I hope you see and have a sense of how important they are. This last video gave us some new insights into how an executive, a manager, could use the third alternative in order to. What it said was that was an actual example where that young man who came in asking for a raise, his creativity actually allowed the company to double in size. And luckily for the company, as well as for the young man and for the manager, she was wise enough to listen to him and ask questions and try to decide, does this person, is he just whining about not getting paid enough, or does he actually have some ideas? And so without a formal brainstorming session, she just asked questions. And the more questions she asked, the more he was able to demonstrate his creativity and his ideas. And so as he was explaining, then he brought other people in and they fine-tuned it, the idea, but did have more of a formal brainstorming session, and that's when she asked him to be in charge of it. He had given the original ideas, got her thinking, won her, convinced her that what he was thinking, that at least the approach he was thinking about might actually work. And then brought in some other experts to, again, contribute their ideas to try to fine-tune that. They also are talking about family situations. We've talked about, he mentioned, the son borrowing the car. It is possible that they might have come to the same conclusion that the father proposed in the win-win, the lose-lose scenario, in the sense that the son might have very agreeably volunteered to do some stuff in order to compensate the father for the increased cost, not just of the gas, but wear and tear in the car. One concern I have, especially with sons, I have a son who wants to get his driver's license. Insurance costs a lot more for teenage boys or boys that are in their early 20s because they are the most likely ones to get into an accident. And so my insurance is going to go up if I let him get his driver's license. So how can I approach a win-win? I can explain, if I were actually explain to him the financial aspects of it. But perhaps he can come up with a way that he can do something that will compensate me for the extra cost. Because it's going to probably be at least $1,000 a year that I'm going to have to pay extra in order to put him on my insurance policy. So what can he do? And that might even be something good for him because he's a business major. I'm starting a new business. And he could very possibly be worth more than $1,000 to me if he gets involved with my new business. So exploring those ideas and doing it in a non-threatening way can really be helpful. I think I may have shared with you an experience I had many years ago when I was elected to the city council in my home city. Where they had been, they said there were 7 people on the council, and they were always fighting with each other, and they were fighting with other people. They were always arguing. They definitely had no win-win solutions to what they were doing. So they were arguing with other people. They were first off arguing with each other over just about everything, and then they were also arguing with other organizations. It's a separate government agency that ran our library system, and they didn't like how much the library wanted them to pay them to have a library in their city, and so they were arguing with them. And so then when I was elected to city council, I had been reading about all their arguments and stuff, and so I proposed, I really think we need to go someplace and have a thorough brainstorming session of what we want to accomplish as a city council. And I had to push it for a couple of weeks before the city manager and others, they agreed that this would not be a bad idea. So we went to a different city, so we'd be away from everybody, and we kind of locked ourselves in a room, and we started sharing ideas what we would like to see happen in the city over the next 10 years or so. Everybody got to give their ideas. We put our ideas on a little post-it, and we'd post all of our ideas around the room. We get to explain our ideas to everybody else, so everybody understood so we might only have a few words on our post-it, but we'd explain what was on our post-it and stick it up on the wall. And then once everybody had a chance to propose all of their different ideas, then we started discussing them. How could this idea perhaps be improved? No criticism, no negativity, but if we thought an idea might be improved with some positive energy, with some new ideas, we would contribute how that idea might be achieved. And so we started, using synergy. How could we do this? How could we have a new tourist center in our city? I had done some reading. I suggested, well, if we want a tourism center in our city, some other cities had combined that with a hotel. So we get some land, we let somebody else build a hotel, but they build us a tourism center as part of the deal. So they would benefit from it because we would have tourists coming into a little convention center there, and those people would likely stay in the hotel. They didn't have to, but you have a hotel, you have a convention center, so the hotel they buy the land from us that we've bought. We let them situate right next to some other city facilities that would draw people into their hotel. They build the convention center for us, but then we start bringing in people to participate in different activities. Those people, like I said, likely to stay in the hotel. And so it costs us less to build a convention center, and it costs them, it increases their sales at their hotel, and it also, by its situation where we were going to have it, the land would be quite affordable considering its location. So that was just one idea where we kind of liked the idea of having a convention center, but we wanted to contribute new ideas, and we started, I'm sounding like Covey, start brainstorming and coming up with solutions to it. We ended up altogether something like 90 ideas, and we started going after them. After we discussed them, we voted on what priority. We never eliminated any of them unless somebody withdrew it themselves. So all 90 ideas that we came up with stayed on a list, but we voted for where do we start? Which ones are we going to give the highest attention to? And so we started working on them. I was only in city council 4 years, but they were still working on our list 15 years later. I think they probably should have had another brainstorming session, maybe update their list. But they were still working on our list 15 years after, 11 years after I left council. But also, just as importantly, they stopped fighting. We debated still, but it never came down to a personal, where we personalized it. Somebody talked last week about how it's one of your false, one way that you can kind of ruin an argument or ruin a discussion is by personalizing it, by saying, you're just an idiot, we don't want to, your ideas aren't worth anything, sort of thing. And that's the sort of stuff that was going on in city council. They had been personalizing it to the degree that then they were just mad at each other all the time. And so they're always fighting over everything. And so by going out and discussing rationally and positively all of the ideas we had, even if some of my ideas might have been towards the bottom of the list, they were on the list. And that basically gave me permission to keep exploring it. And maybe I could find a way to bring it up in the list if I could find support for it out in the community, for example. So having that sort of relationship does not just come up with better ideas, which it does, but it also, in the day-to-day function, removes the competitive, emotional relationship between people. I think I mentioned also that they then asked me to be their liaison with the library board. Again, as I mentioned, the library board provided us a library, but they wanted us to pay and help support it. But the city, before I joined the city council, the city was angry at how much they were asking for. And so the city was talking about starting their own library and just ignoring the library district that had the job of building libraries throughout the area. And they said, if you're going to ask us for that much money, we're just going to build our own library, which would have been definitely a lose-lose situation. Because the city would have found out that if they built their own library, it was going to cost them more than what the library district was asking. But at the same time, the district would have lost, the library district would have lost, because they would have lost the support of the city, which was the biggest city in their library area, their library district. It would have hurt everybody. It would have been truly a lose-lose situation. So when they assigned me to go to that, be the liaison with the library district, they probably were laughing behind my back. We got him, because they had such a bad relationship with the city that when I got there, the library district would not let me even sit in the same room. They had this meeting room where all the members of the library board were sitting, and they made me sit out in the hall and look through the door. So obviously that was not a good relationship. Now that wasn't personal to me, because they didn't know me. In fact, well, one person didn't know me and actually was a friend. But overall, the people in that library board did not know me. And so it wasn't that they hated me, it was that they hated the city at that point. They were mad at the city, and I represented the city. And so for a couple of months, I was sitting outside the meeting room until, I was asking questions, maybe, individually talking to people about what we could do to improve the relationship, what they needed. And the two things they needed was, first off, they needed their funding for their district. And they were asking for more funding from the city, and the city didn't want to give it to them. And they also thought it was time to build a new library. The library they were in was very old. They wanted a bigger library. They preferred to put it in our city. But like I said, the district covered lots of cities, so they could have put it someplace else. But it was to our interest and our best interest if they put the new library, if they could build it in our city. Clearly, it would be better to have it in our city. So as I talked to them and started understanding their perspective, then I was able to come up with a proposal. And my proposal was, first off, the reason why they were having to ask the city council for money was that the city had never voted to become part of the district. And so the library district was servicing the city, but the district could not collect taxes directly from the city citizens because we were not part of the district. And so my first proposal was let's support the district in asking the citizens to be annexed into the district so they have a direct relationship. So the citizens of our city would report directly to the library board, and they would be taxed separately. So the city would no longer pay the library anything, because instead the district would charge a tax to the citizens pay the tax, they'd have the money to do whatever they needed to do. So at first people were kind of skeptical. They said that won't ever work. People won't vote for that. And I said, what's it going to hurt us if they don't? Why not try it? Why not try to support the district so they can provide better services? And if the people agree to it, then that's a good thing. They agree to it. And so my fellow city councilmen agreed that we would put it on the ballot and we'd let the people decide if they wanted to join the district. And so those of us who thought it was a good idea, we gave interviews with the newspaper, we appeared on TV, and there were some people donated money to put advertising in. And lo and behold, it passed. First time. A lot of people say, well, it won't pass the first time, maybe the second time. Well, we'll work on it real hard once, we'll fail, and then we'll put it on the ballot a second time, and it'll pass maybe the second time. Well, we worked real hard and it passed the first time. So my second proposal was, okay, they want a big new library, and they want to build it in our city, on the other side of our city where the better part of the city, so to speak. The old library was in the part of the city that was getting old, and the houses were old and so forth. But they wanted to build one on the other side of town that was the newer part of the city, and they wanted to be about 3 times as big. And so I said, why not put it in the ballot? In fact, we kind of agreed to do that before we suggested annexation, because actually it'd be the library district that would put it on the ballot. So they put it on the ballot, and we supported them. We suggested this would be a good thing, but it would cost, the citizens, it would cost citizens some money. And so we could tell them, this is about how much money you'll pay, and I think it was like the cost of a hamburger every month or something. We'll have a big new library, better equipment, more books, and lo and behold, it was passed first time. And so we have in our city 2 libraries. The old one has been remodeled, and the new one is big and like I say, very modern and so forth. It just required listening. It required listening before I could even get in the boardroom and sit down with them around the same table, because their relationship with the city had been so bad, because they'd been arguing. They had not been looking for solutions. They'd just been mad at each other because they had different needs. So if we look back at the formula was, first off, is it okay if we look for something that will be win-win, that we can both accept, that we both will like? Can we look for that? Would you agree to doing that, to brainstorming? And once they say yes, then the second part was, what would success look like to you? What would success look like to you? Well, in our case, the success for the city was, we don't want our citizens mad at us if we raise their taxes. And so they wouldn't support the district because they didn't want to raise taxes. The district needed more money to operate, and they also wanted a new building. That's what success looked like to them. And so the solution was, let's take them off our taxes altogether. We'd never have to ask for higher taxes for the library, because they won't be paying them as a city citizen. They'll be paying them as a member of the library district if they vote to do it. But it'll be their vote. We're not forcing them to do anything. But we'll put on the ballot the option of letting them vote to become part of the library district and pay some taxes directly to the library district, so they have better services and hopefully in the future a new library. And the people did support it. And then, like I say, after that, they supported building that new library. So both sides got what they wanted. The city not only did not have to raise taxes to support the library district, they got to reduce taxes. They took them totally off of their budget. They no longer had to charge the citizens for anything related to the library directly, because now the citizens were part of the library district. In the library district, again, we got what they wanted, because the people, once they gave their rationale to the people supported them. So they not only voted to come into the district and pay taxes directly to the library district, but they even went so far then to pay additional taxes to build a brand new library that was more modern, larger, and so forth. And they did it willingly. So both sides got what they want. We no longer have to fight with each other. Now we're friends, because we both did partner. We supported their proposal. Well, we supported my proposal, but I came up with a proposal that would be a win-win to both sides, and both sides supported it. The people accepted it, and now we're friends. So that's again, once you agree with what it's going to look like, then it comes down to brainstorming, synergizing to how can you get what you want, and how can you get what you want, or even more than what you want. Actually, what did we achieve? We actually got more than what we wanted, right? The city didn't want to raise taxes. Instead, it got to lower taxes. And the library district not only got direct funding from the citizens, so they didn't have to worry anymore about going and haggling with the city, but they got their new library as well with our support. So both sides got exactly what they wanted and more than what they wanted, than what they thought they could get, put it that way. They got more than what they thought they could get when they were haggling with each other, arguing with each other. They would have, if I could have just solved their arguing, they would have both come up with less. If I would have, if I would have just said, okay, let's be friends, we'll do this, we'll do that. If we negotiated, it would be probably lose-lose. We would have raised our taxes a little bit. We didn't want to. They wouldn't have gotten as much as they wanted to, because we wouldn't raise our taxes as much as they wanted us to. We wouldn't have supported their proposal to build the new library, which not just benefited them, but it was this nice, big, beautiful library in the middle of our city, was a positive for our city. It would attract new residents and so forth. So I mean, it was a very positive addition to our city, but we would not have supported it if we had not gone through the effort to brainstorm and synergize. And then it was a matter of carrying it out. And we support it because we had come to a win-win solution. Now again, this was not maybe the exactly the way they proposed it, in that it was not a formal session of sitting down and brainstorming. I was the liaison, I was the intermediary, and so I had to go talk to this side, then I go to talk to that side, then I talk to that side, until I could show them both that we had a win-win option here. And so maybe it wasn't the absolute best brainstorm or the best synergistic solution or the best synergistic method, let me put it that way. But I think I think it came out absolutely ideally. It just took a little bit extra effort to, instead of both sides being in the same room, I was negotiating, or not really negotiating, I was brainstorming with each one separately. Brainstorming with the library district, how can I get you what you want? What could we do? Brainstorming with the school, the city council, what can we do? And then when we came up with this is what we could do, we did it. It happened. It worked. Both sides were better off than they would have been with a lose-lose compromise. So I did not put a slide for that, but you should look very carefully as you watch those videos. Write down what those steps are, the steps to success and the steps to failure, by the way. He has, in that last video we watched, he showed us the 4 steps of success, the 4 steps of failure. And the failure was basically lose-lose. If you don't synergize, then the typical outcome is to compromise, not synergize, but compromise, and the compromise is usually lose-lose. It's not win-win. Compromise is typically lose-lose. You're both giving something up And so compromise in the case of the city would have been, again, the city raising their taxes a little bit, not as much as the school district wanted, but they'd raise it a little bit and give them a little more money. So the school district compromising would accept a little bit more money, and they would postpone their argument for a couple of years on that basis. Lose-lose. The district would not have gotten a new library. There would have still been some tensions between the two because they both felt the lose-lose results. The city did have to, would have had to raise taxes. They didn't want to raise taxes. And the district would not have gotten how much they wanted. And so it was definitely lose-lose. If that's the way, if we had gone with compromise, it would have been lose-lose. Absolutely. But instead, we synergized and we got win-win. So both sides got better than what they would have gotten with a compromise by a lot. So again, Dr. Covey approach to achieve a third option. Don't be confused. The third option, as I explained in the video, is not just one option. I mean, to get to a third option, you have to look at lots of options. Let me put it that way. You're coming up with the ideal win-win option, but you may go through 24 options before suddenly the light comes on. And that's what they're saying. You can actually tell when you've done it, when everybody looks at each other and says, why didn't we think of this before? When both sides realize, that's it. Wow. This is exactly what we need. This is not lose-lose. This is not 1 + 1. This is 1 + 1 equals 3. This is something we hadn't thought about before. And so both sides, when they suddenly the light curtain turns on, wow, aha. Remember we talked about aha moments. That's when you have that aha moment. Aha. We came up with something where we both come out better. And so that's the ultimate goal of all three of these habits, 4, 5, and 6. We want to achieve things that nobody has achieved before. We don't want to achieve things that are not possible to achieve if we're doing this in parallel and not together. We want to achieve something that is better for all the parties involved. We're having, I mentioned I'm starting this business on the side. We're having some aha moments with that that I'm really excited about. I've been bringing people together, some different organizations together that, wow. We've kind of put together an all-star team, and it's very exciting once we realize these guys had this vision, these guys had this vision. I helped bring them together, and we have something much bigger now. Business can be very exciting when you start looking for the third option. It can be extremely exciting. Well, I think we'll end it there. You do have a few videos to watch. I want you to watch the rest of those third option videos. So we watched 2 of them. There's 3 more. You might not be able to hear the first one very well, so with your own computer, you might be able to hear it better. We watched part of the long video from Dan O'Reilly. I encourage you to watch the rest of that. We probably watched about 5 minutes, so there's another, or something like that, maybe another 10 minutes to watch of that video. That's one of those videos that helps kind of open your eyes to new thoughts, new ideas. Again, kind of like quantum physics to me, kind of, oh, wow, sort of moments as you listen to Dan O'Reilly, because he sees things very differently and has a different expertise than I have, or that you have. And so suddenly we realize, I didn't know I was doing that. I didn't know I was that stupid. or how I could maybe do things better, not just for myself, but in my business, for example. If people are really making decisions that badly, then maybe, not in a, I mean, I guess it is somewhat manipulative. If you learn that one lesson we just watched, if you're doing marketing, you learn something there that, is it manipulation? I don't know. I guess maybe it is. But it's definitely an eye opener to realize all you have to do is change that box, that check box, and you get 3 or 4 times better results. Just how you make up a form. We did watch the one with Will Smith in it and Tony Robbins. We did watch that one. And then so there's then that last one, Ben Zander, I mean, it's short and it's interesting. Also, there's definitely a question on the quiz about that one. So be sure to watch Ben Zander also. Has some enlightening perspectives. Any questions? Any problems? Okay, thank you.